Hi, this is Jonathan, Customer Experience Manager here at SimplyCast.com. Today we're going to talk about creating emails with the Simple Editor. To create our email, we're going to go to the email dashboard and hit Create Project. And I'm going to leave the Simple Editor selected and give my project a name. So now I'm going to hit Continue to Design. Alright, so now we're on the template selection page. Since we're going to be building our own template today, I'm just going to stick with one of the blank templates. So I'm going to go to blank, and I'll just stick with the, we'll use a single column layout. So I've selected that. I'm going to hit Use this template, and that's going to take us onto the design page. Alright, so this is our blank canvas for the message that we're going to create. The way that this editor works is over here on the left are all the different settings that you're going to see. And these are going to change depending on what element is selected over here. You'll see different tabs. This one here is Project Settings, and you can access these anytime. And these are used for example, publishing the template. We could create something here, publish it, and then it would be selectable from the previous page we were just on. We can also preview it in different ways. We can also set it up to be mobile friendly, which I'll talk about later, as well as generate text versions, which we'll also discuss later on in this video. So before we begin, we're going to talk first about drag and drop elements. So there are a number of different elements that you can basically drag and drop to compose your message. And the Simple Editor is basically made up of different blocks of content. So right now we just have a simple text block, which is this white area here. And I'm just going to click on that. And you'll notice as soon as I clicked, we can now see all the information about this particular element on the left. And this is very important because no matter what element you choose, there's always going to be information on the left when you click on that element. For example, let's say I want to add an image at the top of my message. So say you want to have a banner or a company logo. I'm just going to click on Image Block and literally drag it down and release my mouse. And now I've got a region here for an image. And when I click on this, you'll see on the left all the options have changed to be relevant to the image block. So I can do things like change its alignment, background color, add a border, as well as change its dimensions. What I'm going to do is actually click on Choose Image right here inside the block. And I'm just going to grab an image from my desktop and upload it. So I'm going to go up to Upload. You'll see the little window popped up here. And I'm just going to go to my desktop, and I'm going to grab my company header. So you just double click and then it uploads the file. So now we can see it here. And I'm just going to double click, and then it's going to insert it right into that image block. So you'll notice right now the image is a little bit small, and we have all this extra white space down here at the bottom. So we don't want to have that in the finished product here. So what you can do is you'll see all these different arrows that are around. So there's little double arrows, and these are used for sizing. So the horizontal ones, basically you can drag the width back and forth, or you can move it up and down. So I'm just going to drag it up so that it fits nicely within my image that I have. I can't actually make it smaller than the image because if you try to do that, the system automatically forces it to be the width of the image itself. If we did want to make this smaller, we would actually have to go over here to the left where it says image width and image height and actually adjust it here. So we could use, let's say we wanted the message to be, the image to be smaller. we would want to take the slider and basically drag it down. And you'll see, so as I move it to the left, the image gets smaller, to the right it gets larger. We can also type in our own value here. So if I want it to be about, let's say 400 wide, 400 pixels wide, I'll type 400 in here. And if I click off of there, you'll notice that its size is to fit that. And this option here where it says lock aspect ratio, that just basically keeps the proportions of height and width the same. So if I uncheck this, you'll notice that everything has become sort of distorted. So if I was to make the width really high, you'll see how that looks, which needless to say is not very good. So I'm going to turn that back on. And then you'll notice it basically resized the image. So if I wanted to do what I had just done before, I'm just going to put 400 back in there. There, it scaled it down to the size that I want. So I'm just going to click and size this down. I'm making this a little bit narrow because I want the email to be really mobile friendly. So when people are viewing it on their iPhones and Androids, I don't want them to have to scroll back and forth, which is really important, for modern email design. The next element we're going to talk about is a text block, which is very commonly used, and we've actually got one in the message already that I have selected here, and it's really, really long, as you can see. So I'm just going to resize it, kind of bring it up in line with everything else. And then we'll kind of work from here. So if I want to add some content here, you basically just double click. And this is going to split the screen in two. So you'll see a preview on the left and the editor on the right. So I can click over here in the right and I can type information in here. So I can get rid of this, say this is my message content. So if I wanted to make changes to this text I just entered, such as changing maybe the font or the size, all I would do is just highlight the text and then go up and change. For example, if I want it to be a little bigger, I'll use the size drop-down box. See, I'll make it 14. We can change the colors, the alignment. So we can make it centered or right, or I'm just going to leave it left, justified. And we can also make other changes too, bold, italic, underline, etc. So now that I'm pretty happy with this, I'm just going to click on the Done button. Now there's another way you can access this as well. Rather than double clicking, you can click on the Edit Text button, which will basically open that same view up. Or if you have your own HTML code you want to load in your message, you can actually load your own code in these different blocks. So I could click Edit HTML, and then I can see the HTML code of what I just entered there. So you can see it here for those who are so inclined to make changes to the code itself. There's also another shortcut here, the source view, over here on the right. And that'll do the same thing. That'll take us into that HTML view that I just showed you. Now, if you're going to be entering a lot of different text, like we had started to do in the text block, you can actually set up default fonts, sizes, and colors, and we call these styles. And if you go over to the left, you'll see a tab right beside our element settings called Default Styles. So right now, inside a text block, the defaults are basically a 12-point font using the default font that's just happens to be Arial. But we could change this to be something else. Say we could do maybe Verdana. And you'll notice actually the text just changed over here on the right. So we could say maybe we want Verdana 14-point to be the default. And then we can also change some other attributes here too. We could change the weight of the font, so make it say bold, for example. I'm just going to leave it on the default. And we could also do the color as well. So maybe I want it to be maybe not black, but maybe a little more gray. So I'm just going to choose that option here. And I can either click on choose down here, or I can just click outside of this area and it will close it. So now we've set up some default styles. So there are a number of different elements that you'll notice across the top. And for the sake of length, I won't cover them all, but you'll see there's a variety of social elements. You can actually do different caption blocks, grids, and many more. The next one that I'm going to talk about is one of the more popular elements that people use, and these are the caption elements. So let's say I want to have an image in my message and then have some text beside it. Let's say I want the image on the right and the caption on the left. I could take the caption left element and then drag that down and drop it in my message. So what I'm going to do before I edit that, I'm just going to resize this a little bit. And then I'm going to click on it. And there are two different regions in here. So if I wanted to edit the text on the left, I can double click. And then you'll notice the familiar split view that we talked about, where you can basically type in your own text. So I'll just call it, say, caption left. Now I'll just click. And then I can choose an image. So I'm going to click on choose image, and I'm going to use a image that I've got on my desktop. So I'm just going to double click on my image here to upload it. And here it is. I'm going to double click again. And you can see this little graphic that I've added. Then I'm just going to resize this a little bit so it fits nicely. And that's how we can do a caption block. So if you wanted to make changes later, like let's say you decided, you didn't want this image anymore, you can just click choose image, and you'll notice it'll appear as soon as I move my mouse over it. And there's also, like all the other elements, there are additional settings that are over here on the right. One thing that is really important to make a note of is the settings for each element are always in this Element Settings tab. I was working with styles before, so that was still open. You'll see that these had changed as well, so you can actually set up specific styles for specific elements. So I could change all these styles for caption left, and if I added additional caption left elements, they would pick up these styles. And then I can click on element settings to see all the settings for the caption block. And this is useful, for example, if the image that you've added to the caption, if you want to change the dimensions, you can do that here. As well as make a link as well. So you could actually insert a link on the image that's inside the caption. So for example, I could say I want the link to go to mycompany.com. Just type it in here. And then that way anybody who clicks on that image is going to go there. We can also change background colors. And this is the same for a lot of the different elements that we have. So I could say I wanted a very light blue. We could do that just by selecting it here. Or we can use this little color palette to kind of change the way that looks as well. Yeah, we can choose this, and if I say choose, you'll notice it'll change. So now it's a little bit lighter. So you can also change padding. For example, if you want a little bit of extra padding on the left, you can just use a slider here, and it will kind of add padding around there. Now you'll notice that as soon as I used the slider, the padding changed for everything. And that's because of this option here called lock padding. And when you lock it, it changes it equally on all sides. But if I was to uncheck it and just change padding left, you'll see that just the left section has padding added to it. I'm going to make them all the same, so I'm just going to reselect lock padding, and then just make it all about, make it 10. Oops. You can actually type in these boxes too, which makes it really convenient to get the exact value that you want. So now I've selected the footer element, and the footer contains links to unsubscribe or update client preferences, and it's present in all the different emails that are sent with our system. So the first thing that we're going to need to do here is just put in an address here. So right now it just has the default, so I'll just say my company. Let's use a fictional address here for this video. There. So now we've got our company updated, and then what we can do is change the way that this information is presented. Since I have a fairly narrow message here, I'm going to change the address style to be multi-line instead of single line. And that way it's going to look a little bit better. So now that we've got the address information changed a little bit, let's talk about adding multiple columns, because this is a common question that people often ask. Even though I chose a template that has a single column, I'm not limited to just a single column. And if I go up to text block and insert another one, I can actually click on the text block. So now you'll notice several new icons are around the text block. And I'm just going to add a new column. And to do that, I'm just going to go over here to the right. And you'll see this icon here. And we're going to click on it to add a new column. So now you can see that I've got two columns here. And when I click on them, you'll notice that they're basically, for all intents and purposes, separate text blocks. So I could double click on these to make changes. And if I decided I wanted to make the email mobile friendly, designs that have multiple columns basically will turn into single column designs. And we actually have another video that covers mobile design. And I definitely recommend you check that out because it'll explain everything you need to do to have a mobile-friendly email. So there are a couple of other really useful items to use here too, like image grids and caption grids. And I'm going to show you what a caption grid is. So I'm just going to drag that down and put that underneath and then scroll down. So here's our caption grid. So you can see that we can have multiple images beside each other. And not only that, we can put captions underneath these images. So maybe you have a company that has, you're showcasing products. You could go and you could insert links just by clicking choose image, for example. I could go and, here I'll upload another one for our example. And actually I'm going to upload two images, because we're going to use a caption that has 3 separate images. So just to show you a little better what that will look like. So I'm just going to double click on one of them here, so you can see it there. Then we can make a caption underneath it. So I'm just going to go over here to the left, and you can see all the caption grid properties. And right where it says caption 1, we can type in whatever we want that caption to say. So I could say, this is my product, for example. And you'll see as soon as I type that in, it's displayed underneath here. Here, I'll scroll down so we can see that a little more clearly. And then we can do some things like make little adjustments. We could make the image align to the top, for example. You'll see it'll move it nicely to the top. We can add padding around the image if we wanted to. We can change how the caption itself is aligned. So right now it's center aligned, but we could add it. We could make it left aligned or right aligned. And we can also add different padding too. So right now you can see it's kind of like stuck to the bottom of the element. We can just use this slider here for vertical padding, just to move the caption up a little bit, just so it looks better. We can also add links. You can type in a URL here on the left, so that way people can click to visit a specific page. We can then make changes to add additional ones. So we could add additional captions. I can either scroll down here on the left and click on the Choose Image button here, or I can just go over to the right and then just click on Choose Image. where I can go and add additional images there. So I'll do that really quickly just to kind of give you an idea of how you might use a caption block. So now you can see 3 images there. And then I could add separate captions for each. So we might say, oops. So we might say this is product 2. And then maybe we want to add some padding to that, kind of make it the same as the other. And then so on and so forth. And the nice thing about all this is you don't need to have any knowledge of HTML to do this. You literally just drag and drop the elements that you want to use into the editor, click on them, and then just make little modifications. And if you decide that, for example, if I didn't like this caption block here and I want to move it, it's not a problem. I can just left click on it, drag it up, drop it, and swap positions easily. And if I decide that I don't want this text block that's here, I can click on it, click on the trash can icon, and delete it. So now I'm left with another single column. And here, I'll delete that one as well. So now I'm back on the template page because I want to show you another template that you can work from. You don't have to create a blank template every time you make a message. You could use your own, or you can use one of our pre-designed ones. And I'm just going to select one of them here. I'll just use this travel newsletter template. So there's a little preview, and then we'll say use this template. So one of the neat things I want to show you about this template is the image grid that it uses. So right under where it says travel newsletter, these 3 images here are in a grid. So if I click on that element, you'll see all the settings will change on the left. And right now they're arranged in a line. And the neat thing is, I don't actually have to use a line layout. I can change it to a grid. So now you'll see they've been rearranged. It looks kind of strange with 3 images here. So I could change that to up to 4 images in a grid. So you can see how they've all rearranged themselves. And I could click on any of these different images to swap them out with something different. So you can use these pre-made templates to really get a head start on a particular design that you may want to work with. And this template already has a social sharing block. And this element allows people to share the message that you're sending. And you can actually change this over on the left and decide which social media sites you want to include. So maybe I don't want to have this on LinkedIn for some reason. I could just click on the icon here on the left, and then it disappears over on the right. So now I'm going to click on the Tumblr icon, and then you'll see the Tumblr image will appear over on the right. So you can use that to basically select the different ones that you want people to share it on. So if I was to get this email and I clicked on the Twitter button, for example, I could basically post a link in my tweet, and then people could go and click on that link and then see the content from the email that I'm sharing, which is a great way to really get more reach in the campaigns that you're sending. There's also a similar element. I'm just going to show you that as well for social following. So you could actually put that in here. There we go. And so people can follow me on, say, Facebook, Twitter, etc. And like all the other elements here, I can click on it and I can change the alignment. So if I wanted it to be right aligned, I'll just go over here, make the adjustment, and then it'll be consistent with the other footer there. So you have a few different options for social media. You probably don't want to have this many social media icons in close proximity to one another. So I'm just going to go with the social sharing. So I'm just going to delete that element. There, if I scroll back down, you'll see that we're just left with the sharing. So there's a lot of different options that you have in the editor. It's easy to drag and drop elements to move them around. It's easy to click on them to make changes to colors and alignments and the content themselves. As you're editing your message, it's important to keep in mind that we have help and tutorials readily available. So you can access these by clicking on Help and Tutorials over on the left. And each one of these are very short videos that'll show you how to do particular things. So if you're not sure how to move an element around or how to maneuver around the editor, you could view this video, and so on and so forth. You can see a number of different ones as I scroll through them. If you have any questions, check out our FAQs. Send us a tweet at SimplyCastHelp or send us an email at support@simplycast.com. Thanks for watching.